Hello, everybody. Welcome to another webinar from Keystone Click. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're talking about content strategy. And you might notice that you have a little different crew with you today. My name's Keegan Gallup. You may have seen me before. I've done a couple of these webinars. I am an account coordinator here at Keystone Click. And with me, I have webinar rookie, Aaron. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Erin Jordan and I am the marketing intern here at Keystone Click. So as Keegan said, this is my first webinar, so please take it easy on me and him as well.
Yep, I was just about to say, take it easy on her, but you know what? Take it easy on me as well. We're all here to learn, but yeah. So today, I'm just going to do a little introduction about Keystone Click. We are a strategic digital marketing agency. We were opened in 2008. And just a little bit about our clientele. About 80% of our clients are in the B2B space. But even within that 80% and even the other 20%, we have a really wide portfolio. We work with sports teams. We work with small businesses, really, like I said, wide. What we really like to focus on is creating a comprehensive marketing strategy for our clients and implementing that strategy. And this is through website redesign, through social media, through marketing automation, however we find best fit to make our companies, the clients, the best companies that they can be. So first off, we are going to go through today's agenda a little bit. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the basics of content strategy, give you a little brief definition of content marketing. Then we're going to move into another brief discussion of defining your audience, because that's very important in a content strategy. Then we're going to really get into the meat of it. We're going to talk about the ways to create and distribute your content. And then we're going to focus in a little bit and talk about the 3 keys of a content strategy. And then I just have a brief PSA for you at the end about finalizing your content strategy. And then we're going to get to Q&A. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A function at your Zoom, at the bottom of your Zoom. So with that being said, let's get to, well, actually, Aaron, you have an offering for everybody who's listening today.
I do. So today, at any time, if you see something that's relevant to you, you find really insightful, we invite you to take a screenshot of what stands out to you, tag us when you post it, and share that tidbit of information with your network. And by doing that, you will be entered for a chance to win an amazing book, The Secrets of Ad Agency Owners. Keegan, do you want to tell them a little bit more about what they can expect in that book?
For sure. So Lori, who actually is our boss and our coworker, wrote a chapter in this book. And this is a super important book, not only for ad agency owners, but any business can learn about the mistakes that other business owners, because ad agency owners are business owners, any mistakes that they've learned. So it's super important. It's a really good read. And you definitely want to enter to win this book.
Absolutely. So let's get into the basics of what is a content strategy and what is content marketing. I've got a nice definition for you here. Content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. So that's a big definition, but we're going to break it down for you here. You may also be asking yourself, why is content marketing important? There's a lot of reasons, and that's why we're here to share some tricks and tips for content marketing, but ultimately you can improve brand awareness. You can build authority and credibility of your business by presenting yourself as an expert on certain topics that are relevant. You can create loyalty and trust with customers over time, both customers that are current and future customers, future prospects. With that, you can generate leads with content marketing. You can enhance CEO efforts, which we'll touch on as well. And there's so much more, but this just gives you an idea of how important content marketing is and why it's important to prioritize a effective content strategy.
Yeah, and before we really get into the meat of content strategies, and Aaron, thank you for that definition. I think is really important that people understand why a content marketing strategy is important. We need to talk a little bit about defining your audience. Creating a content strategy, in doing so, you need to understand who your audience is. You need to understand who that you are targeting. So these are, the people that you want to be thinking of when you're creating your thought leadership, when you're writing your blogs. We did a previous webinar on this, so if you want to, you can go back and subscribe, and you can get all our webinars actually. But here's just a quick example of just something we created. So this one person actually represents a whole group of people in our target. So you can see she has a bio. She's got her own goals, she's got her frustrations, but what we're kind of focusing on here is the messaging tactic. So this is the information about how your target audience likes to receive their information. Cynthia here likes to get trend data, and she likes to be ahead of the curve and well educated. The other thing that's super important to focus on is that you need to focus on where your audience is. If your audience doesn't like coffee, they're not going to be in a coffee shop. Maybe they like pizza instead, and you need to go to the pizza store down the street to find your audience. So think about where are they in the digital landscape. If they're older, maybe they're not so much on LinkedIn or YouTube, but maybe they're using Facebook. So just keep those things in mind when you're creating your content, because that will help you create the best content and reach the biggest audience that you can. So let's get right into the meat of it, creating content. I'm going to do one more little note. Take a screenshot of a slide and post about it on social media and tell us how you are going to use this in your businesses strategy, and you can win that free book that we were talking about. That's super awesome. So the first one we're talking about is a big one. It's big because it's both important and it's actually a bigger piece of content. These are ebooks. Obviously, everyone knows that these are also known as electronic books. They're longer form pieces of content, and they really are, or they have topics that are extremely specific. So the example here is from Bright Gauge, and it is how to implement an efficient success team. So if you are searching for or thinking about starting a success team, you're probably going to want to read this ebook. So the other thing that you'll notice here is that this actually isn't the book, the screenshot that we're showing you. This is a landing page. So ebooks are normally, and what we like to do, a form of gated content. So people have to give you something, usually their information, just an email, their name, possibly phone number, company, in order to get that really in-depth information, that ebook. And these are the center of campaigns a lot of the times. So it's really important that you can get your customers' information, or audience's information, I should say, in order to continue to give them valuable content to what they're looking for. So another one, and we're talking again about valuable to your audience, is case studies. So with case studies, you can organically build a rapport with your audience. So these really help build trust with potential customers, because I would say the number two thing is people go to your website, then they go to about, and then they look for your work. What do you do? How can you help me? And people like looking at the kinds of work that you've done. In our example here, this is from HubSpot, and this is just on their website. They are boasting that they grew the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's audience by 81%. So it's really important that people see that. Someone might go to HubSpot, see that, and be like, oh, I wonder how much HubSpot can grow my audience by. So again, it helps build rapport with customers and shows that you have credibility within your industry. These are also forms of evergreen content. So if you don't know what that is, evergreen content is just content that you can use continuously. So this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, they could have done this 2 years ago, but they could still have this on their website. Obviously, you want to keep updating these things and keeping them fresh, but evergreen content can be used continuously and for long periods of time. The other thing that's really nice about case studies is they are fantastic for SEO because you are creating these things that show a company's problem when you came in, your solution to the problem, and then your outcome to the problem. So obviously the outcome here is 81%. The solution is, they used HubSpot's platform in certain ways to, increase their audience. But it's really good for SEO because in the problem, solution, and outcome, you're talking about the industries, you're hitting on all these types of keywords, and you're really answering these questions that people could be searching for on Google or Bing. So again, these are fantastic for SEO, and they really help with your credibility and build rapport with your audience. Another great form of content is interviews, and you might be when you hear interviews, you might be thinking of getting interviewed by the local news, and it is a little bit like that. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of echo. It is a little bit like that, but we're talking more about blogs and Q&A questions, question and answers. So, or sorry, not blogs, podcasts. Blogs too, though. So the example here is we had somebody on our Keystone Click blog, and we did a Q&A blog with them, and then they ended up sharing that with their audience. So it's the same kind of thing as podcasts. If you have a podcast, which are really easy to start, I might mention, you can have a guest on and to talk about their specific niche or their industry expertise. And then they will share that content because they're excited about it as well with their already established audience. So this furthers your audience and really broadens it to find people who maybe have never heard of you and will get hooked on your podcast or your blog and keep coming back to you and thinking of you with your content. So again, it really makes you a thought leader in your field. Moving on, we've got infographics, and infographics are super fun. I love this one. Obviously, you've got 3 examples here. It's a lot of words, but what's even better than the words is the So oftentimes, infographics are used to show processes or a number of tips. And you can post these on social media or within your blog. And we'll talk about distribution in a little bit. But the one thing I really want to mention about infographics is that they are great ways to get out a lot of data. If you have a lot of data, infographics are great visualization tools. This first one on the left that you see is about the time you spend on the internet. And obviously, it's a ton of percentages, it's hours, it's minutes, but it really brings you in and it brings the audience in with these great visualizations. So I kind of mentioned it before, but you can embed these into blogs, but you can also create these from blogs. And that's our next one. And I'm going to pass it over to Erin to talk a little bit about blogs.
Yeah. So Blogs really are your opportunity to establish your business or brand as an industry expert. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind when you're creating a blog. You want to make sure overall that it's easy to read. There's a couple of ways to do this, whether it's having titles or specific words, bolded, italicized, different stylizations with that. Lists and bullet points are a great way as well to kind of hit your key points and make them clearly defined for your audience. Blogs also, you want to make sure that you prioritize content that's evergreen. Like Keegan mentioned, evergreen content is something that's a little bit more timeless, but still provides a lot of great value for your audience, your readers. With blogs, you also want to target more words. We recommend about 800 or more words, and there's a couple of reasons why. You're ensuring that you're creating that what you're offering in your blog is valuable to your readers, but this also gives you a chance to optimize your blogs with keywords, and you're hitting those words that are most relevant and what your audience ultimately is looking for to learn about. We also have newsletters. Newsletters are a great way to engage with specific leads and increase conversions. And one of the biggest things to remember when creating newsletters is that it's an opportunity to consistently engage and reach out to your audience. Another thing to keep in mind is you want your newsletters to primarily be value-driven. You're offering different content that you've created that in some way is relevant and important to who you're sending your newsletter to. Newsletters are also a great way to promote different events or things that you have going on as a business. You're updating them on your recent activities. You're letting them know about your upcoming webinars, for example, or you're letting them know that you have some new content available for them, like learn from our latest blog, which is something that we like to send in our own newsletters.
Yeah, and I think just to also mention events you talked about a little bit, but people love seeing that kind of stuff. People love hearing about what you're up to as a company. If you're doing like fundraisers or anything like that, people eat that stuff up. So it's also great pieces of content to add into your newsletter.
Yeah. And the last type of content that we're going to talk about today are videos. And videos are kind of new on the block, but they're super innovative and they allow you to tell an amazing story visually. So another big opportunity with videos is that they can improve your social media success. Not only can you post your videos on your own YouTube channel, because YouTube is one of the largest search engines, you wouldn't believe, but it is. So it's important to have a presence there perhaps, but shorter clips and videos are great ways to push on your social media channels, because audience and users of social media often engage with videos more often than other types of content there. So it's a great way to just diversify your content a little bit, tell a great story. When you're creating videos, you want to make sure that you have good lighting, good sound quality. You want to keep it short and sweet depending on the platform you're distributing it to. And captions are also really important for that accessibility aspect of it.
Yeah, and I just like to mention this because everybody, once you start doing video, the first thing that people think is like, wow, I hate the way I sound. I hate the way I look. But it's just something that you got to push through and kind of get over because, like Aaron said, people love videos, and it's a great way. It's an easy way for people to consume your content. So again, I'll probably listen back to this webinar at some point and be like, wow, that's what I sound like. Ugh. But it's great. People love video, so you know, just have to power through that. Everyone thinks that, so don't worry about it too much.
Yeah. And because a lot of things are still virtual, even, videos are a way to kind of provide that face-to-face connection still,
Absolutely.
just
Yep.
in a virtual format.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to get into distributing content. We've mentioned it a couple times, but there's a couple of main channels that we like to talk about are best to distribute the content, the great content that you're creating. Before we really get into those core channels, there's the idea of reduce, reuse, and recycle for your content. And this is probably one of your key takeaways from this webinar. So let's say you conduct an interview, like Keegan mentioned. You can take that one interview and create a blog post, a LinkedIn article. You can create a video clip from it if you record it. You can create bits of content posts for your social media platforms. The idea here really is that one piece of content can be divided, adapted, and transformed even into a lot of different pieces of content that live on a variety of channels. So you're really increasing your digital presence and you're working a little bit smarter and not harder.
Absolutely. Yep. Smarter, not harder is what we are all about.
Absolutely. So something we've touched on before, obviously, but is a great way to reach your customers, both your current and future ones, through email. So email really is your opportunity to encourage loyalty and repeat business and remind them of your business and what you're doing and things that are coming up that may interest them. You can also take advantage of drip campaigns. And drip campaigns are where you identify specific leads and their interests, whether that be, you know, a certain industry, etc., and you provide them with content or specific offerings of yours that tie into those interests. So they're a great way to follow up with your leads, but also tailor content specific to them.
Yep. And just the example we have here was an email. It's actually a drip campaign that we had set up that Will, if you guys know Will, he would send emails and then just, you know, provide value added content. So you can see the URL link that says why your business should utilize marketing automation. And, you know, someone might click on that and find that interesting. So they would click on it and it would take them to one of our blog posts. So again, it's just adding value to a specific or to an audience who has specific interests. So we've mentioned it a bunch of times already, but social media. So with social media, you can continuously push your content. And you can also find a new audience. You can do that. There's sharing on Facebook and LinkedIn. There is retweeting on Twitter. So if people find your stuff interesting, maybe they'll do that and share that with their already established audience. You can also use social media to connect with your audience. You can, or I suppose we use like social listening tools. So you can see who is commenting, who's liking on your stuff. And if they comment and ask a question, that right there is another great idea for a piece of content to answer somebody's question. The other thing that I really want to focus in on about social media is content calendars. So if you don't know what a content calendar is, it is literally a calendar filled with your content. So what we do at Keystone Click, we go about a month in advance. So we have a calendar, and for every day we fill out what our social media post on what channel is going to be that day. And we really use this. We think it's super important because that way you don't have to think of a new post every day, because that can get a little taxing on you. And that's where you see a lot of social media burnout, or companies stop posting because they're not planning ahead. So that's something that you really want to think about. And like Aaron said before, reuse and recycle. So use those pieces of content and break them up into smaller social media posts and put them on your content calendar. The other thing I want to mention is paid media. I like to say putting your money where your content is. If you have a fantastic piece of content and you want to push it out to an audience that you don't have, say you don't have 15,000 Twitter followers or Facebook likes, but you have this great piece of content that you think 15,000 people would like, you can pay a little bit of money to achieve a wider audience for that piece of content. It's a great way to kind of build awareness for your brand and your content, and maybe you'll pull some more people in to continue to look at your content. Another thing I want to mention is the website, and the website is super, super important for your business. It is your 24/7 salesperson. It is always there for you. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of insight, and I don't know if Lori's listening. Who knows if she'll be mad at me or not, but we are at Keystone Click. We're in the process of making a new website, creating our own new website. And the one big thing that we wanted is we wanted an awesome resource center. So that is going to be the home for all of our content, for our blogs, our podcasts, our videos, our ebooks, all of it. So we really suggest that your website is the home for your content, whether it just be the blog and that's where you're creating a lot of your stuff from, or you have podcasts, you can put them on there as well. The other thing I kind of want to mention is landing pages. I know I talked a little bit about them with ebooks, but landing pages are super important for your campaigns, your specific campaigns. And if somebody, our example here, you see the little guide to profits, that's actually a booklet that you can get if you go to keystoneClick.com/guide to profits. Shameless plug. If you go there, you will get to this landing page. But before that, we also push out on social media. So we post videos, and if somebody clicks on the link, we want to take them to a landing page, a page on our website that is specifically geared towards what they are expecting, the guide to profits, the tip that we offer them for the day. So we take them to this landing page that says, here's the tip, here's another tip, get your guide to profits now, sign up, give us your email, and we'll send you this book completely free of charge. So again, your website is where you capitalize. It is where you get people's emails, where you get people's information to continue to provide them value until you can push them along further along in the sales funnel. Sorry for my little stutter there. Until you can make that sale with them. One last thing that maybe you guys haven't thought about before is orgs and associations. So there are tons and tons of organizations out there, and associations especially. These don't all have to be like in-person groups. Especially now, there's a lot of virtual groups, but there's also Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups that are extremely active in sharing content, sharing industry news, tons of stuff. So you can reach a really like-minded audience. Our example here that I have for you, like I said before, we have 80% of our business is B2B. So we are part of the Independent Business Association of Wisconsin, where a lot of B2B people are. And if you'll see my fancy graphic there, who is that handsome fellow in the bottom left on the cover of their August magazine? Oh, that's me. Who would have thought? So that is just a piece of content that I had created and we shared with that association, and they picked it up. And now we've got, again, a wider audience, but it's all like-minded people who are interested in this kind of stuff. So again, just a great way to reach a new audience of all like-minded people.
Yeah. And I think too, one other thing to think about is all of those channels really feed back and direct back to your site where all your content is. So that's a big point to consider as well. But we're going to move on to the 3 keys, and these are probably the main points that you want to take away. These are something to keep in mind when creating and distributing your content and overall designing your content strategy. The 3 keys we have for you are consistency, value, and relevance. Now, to explain this a little bit, we have an example for you, Keystone Pizza. So this is just an idea, although Kean.
Hey, I'm telling you, if we put a little bit of money behind this, I know Lori will go for it, and I know it'll be a huge hit. Just saying, sister company of Keystone Click, Keystone Pizza. Hey, I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody at Keystone Click, we really like our pizza, but we just thought we'd give you a nice example to run through our 3 keys. And the first one we have is consistent content. So when Keen was talking about social media, he definitely wanted to mention a content calendar. And so we have an example for you here. If we were to own and operate Keystone Pizza, this would be an idea for a starting out and posting content both on Twitter and Instagram, and also sending emails with updates on locations, new menu items, and even some deals or coupons here and there. So next type of content that you want is valuable content. Now, you'll see here it's kind of a ratio of the types of content you should be promoting, and it's a rule we like to follow ourselves, and it's the 70-20-10. So 70% of the time you want to promote content that provides value to your audience. In the case of Keystone Pizza, what you'd want to do is or what you saw in our content calendar, for example, we'd be tweeting and Instagramming our menu offerings, the ingredients that we were using, location updates, all things that may be really important to our pizza audience, pizza loving audience. So then 20% would be engaging with others. This is something that you didn't see on the content calendar, but it still is really important to do on occasion. So 20% of the time, we would be scrolling through, seeing if any customers tagged us saying, I just enjoyed Keystone Pizza's latest pepperoni slice and it was awesome. And we would absolutely want to share that on our own platforms too, to not only engage with that customer, to increase loyalty with them, but also share with others that people enjoyed our offerings and maybe entice them to come as well. And the last 10% you see here is about making the sale. So I mentioned in that content calendar, we'd be sending emails. And a couple of those times, what we'd be doing is actually pushing a sale with a coupon or a deal that we'd offer. But really, the majority of the time, what you want to do is prioritize content that provides value to your audience in some way. Lastly, relevant content. And relevant content gets a little bit more analytical. If you may not know, but we held a keyword research webinar not too long ago, and we talked about this where when doing some initial research on keywords in search engines, there's a couple of things you want to look out for. You want to look at how many results those keywords pull up. You want to look at what people are also asking about in relation to that. and searches related to. So these are great indicators of what your audience is looking for. And then ultimately, that keyword research informs your content so that you meet your audience where they're looking for, and you answer those questions that they may have.
Absolutely. And these are, like you said, these are great ways to find new pieces of content that you can write about. I think that's really important to focus on. Is your keyword research informs your content. So I have one more final PSA for everybody, and it is about finalizing your content strategy. Again, we talked about the most important three things, the three keys, but this probably follows that up right behind. These are your calls to action. In order to get your audience to do something, you need to actually tell them what to do. They've read your blog, they listen to your podcast, but what do they do now? They don't know unless you actually tell them. So I've got a couple examples here. This first one on the left is from Lyft. It's a social media, it's actually a paid advertisement, but their call to action in the bottom right, you see install now. Prezi asks people to try Prezi. In the bottom right, you see just a subscribe feature with their email address. These are all really important pieces of your content. You need to make sure that you are moving your audience or your customer along in the sales funnel, whether it be really, really slowly, and maybe these people aren't going to click on install now or buy now right away, but if you keep providing them valuable content, they are going to want to eventually. So it's really important to make sure you have calls to action on every single piece of content that you are producing. So what's next? Thank you guys for listening to us talk about content strategy. We really appreciate it. A ton of fun. Feel free to, we're going to do a question and answer, so feel free to start typing your questions now. It looks like we maybe have one or two questions right away.
Keegan, you're cutting out just for a second, so we're just asking you in the next little bit, if you have a question on anything we've said today, just go ahead and enter it in the chat box function in Zoom. And then I think Keegan's going to tell you about this.
Am I back now?
Webinars that we have. Yeah,
I'm back. Okay, sorry about that. Zoom, had a little technical difficulty. So Aaron said, yep, Q&A. The next, what's coming up in 3 weeks, not 2 weeks, we are doing another research and strategy webinar about measuring your marketing goals. That one's going to be really important because obviously you want to measure how your content strategy is doing in every campaign that you're working on. And then finally, to wrap up the research and strategy webinar series, we are bringing in a bunch of experts. I'm super excited for this one. You guys are definitely going to want to sign up for this. It's going to be just straight Q&A. We're going to talk to experts about how they do their research and strategy, their best tips and tricks. You guys are not going to want to miss this one. And then keep an eye out. On October 8th, we are starting our marketing automation webinar series. So keep an eye out for some registrations for that. So with that being said, feel free to let us know if we can help you out in any way. Our emails are on the screen there. If you are looking for a guide to profits in order to boost your business's bottom line, visit keystoneclick.com/profits. It's a free ebook, no strings attached. Let us know any questions. We'll give you guys a little bit and then we'll jump right into it. I see we have 2 questions right away. So yeah, awesome. Thank you guys.